In the 1950s, deep in the forests of Mount Kenya, a fierce freedom fighter emerged, armed not just with a rifle, but with unshakable conviction. His name was Dedan Kimathi. To the British, he was a terrorist. To his people, he was a hero, the man who dared to dream of a free Kenya. Dedan Kimathi was born in 1920 in central Kenya, among the Kikuyu people who had lost their lands to British settlers. He was a teacher, a writer, and a man who believed in justice. But when he saw his people forced into poverty and labor camps, something inside him broke. By the early 1950s, frustration had turned to rebellion. Kimathi joined the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, better known as the Mau Mau movement, a group of Kenyan fighters determined to take their land back by force if necessary. Under Kimathi's leadership, the Mau Mau organized in secret. They took oaths of unity, trained in the forests, and launched attacks on colonial targets. Kimathi became their field marshal, commanding respect through discipline, intelligence, and charisma. The British responded with brutal force. They declared a state of emergency in 1952, rounding up thousands of Kenyans, burning villages, and placing entire communities in detention camps. But even as the British Army searched the forests with planes and troops, Kimathi and his fighters refused to surrender. He once said, "It is better to die on our feet than to live on our knees." In October 1956, after years of fighting, Dedan Kimathi was captured in the Nyeri forest, wounded and betrayed. The British paraded him as a trophy, hoping his arrest would crush the rebellion. But instead, it turned him into a martyr for freedom. Even in chains, Kimathi stood tall. During his trial, he refused to beg for mercy, declaring that his struggle was not a crime, but a duty. In 1957, he was executed by hanging in Nairobi prison. The British buried his body in an unmarked grave, trying to erase his legacy. But they failed. Kimathi's spirit lived on, in every Kenyan who believed that freedom was worth fighting for. Just a few years later, in 1963, Kenya gained independence, and Dedan Kimathi became one of its most honored heroes. Today, statues of Kimathi stand tall in Nairobi, and his name is taught in schools as a symbol of bravery, resistance, and national pride. His story reminds us that freedom has a price, and that sometimes it takes one man's courage to awaken a nation. Because Dedan Kimathi didn't just fight the British. He fought for the soul of Africa.